How do you develop character arcs over long form series? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. I don't usually give a ton of information on here about how to write long form series because usually the people who are writing those series have a team that they are already working with, but not everybody has that, so I'm going to attempt some of that here today. But putting this information into a short video is difficult, so we'll do the best that we can. So the question specifically says, if you have a main character who has to learn and grow over the course of each book, but then they come back for book 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and how do you get them to continue to grow without being really frustrating and annoying for the characters? And so this is not like the exact wording that they use, but this is the vibe, and they kind of went on to clarify this in other comments in the comment thread. So every single book in the series has to be satisfying to some degree. The better you are selling and the more guaranteed your next release is, the less satisfying each ending can be. So book 1 has to be satisfying because you haven't sold any books yet. Book 2, if book 1 is selling extremely well and you're guaranteed to be putting out book 3, you can leave a little bit more of a question mark, a little bit more of a cliffhanger at the end of book 2. And this is how you're going to get very, very successful authors that every single book in the series ends with a major cliffhanger, because the publisher knew that they were going to be able to keep selling those books because they had a track record of doing so for a very long time. There does need to be some satisfaction. There does need to be some feeling of, yes, this book is finished. I am ready to go pick up the next one. But that is going to vary based on your level of success and how much you are selling. So let's talk about character arcs for just an average series. So book 1 has to be satisfying. Every single book after that has to have some level of satisfaction, but can leave more in the question marks going forward after that point. With the idea being then that like the end of the book, last book in the series, is very satisfying, very final, feels very cohesive. And I'm going to use Lorelai Gilmore as an example because if we look at the initial 7 seasons, this is actually a really good character that follows this. So at the beginning of the pilot, she is a single mom who is not dating. She's kind of flirting with the diner owner. She and her daughter both are very single, very happy about being single. Rory is starting to flirt with a boy in a meaningful way for the first time. And Lorelai has this real I'm letting go of my little girl kind of a vibe in that first pilot episode, and you start to get the chance that get the idea that these Gilmore girls are on a precipice. And you sort of get the idea that these characters are transitioning from being mother-daughter to being best friends as women. And so you're going to watch Lorelai go through that arc and go through that change in that first season. So at the beginning, she's very single, very happy about that. And at the end of season 1, she gets proposed to. They leave the proposal answer itself as a bit of a question mark. You don't know for sure what she's going to say. She's very overwhelmed. But he has proposed in exactly the way that she said she wanted to be proposed to. So if this had been the end of the show, and if this had been the only book that was released, we would say like Lorelai got exactly what she wanted. Rory has learned to say I love you to Dean. That's a different problem. So, but Rory has grown up. She is now a young woman on her own. Lorelai is ready to become a woman in her own right without having to just be Rory's mom. She has fallen in love. Then if we move to season 2, so at the end of season 1, she is a woman in love on the precipice of becoming her own woman as in her own identity without being a mother. She starts season 2 in that place. She is engaged to Max. She is moving forward with this like new phase of her life. Then we forward to the end of season 2. Not only has she broken up with Max, but she has thought that she might get back together with Rory's father, and he has dropped a bombshell on her. And so she has not only blown up her engagement, but she has also blown up any chance of happiness and embarrassed herself in another big way. She didn't embarrass her, so he embarrassed her in a very big way. And we went from being happy to being just shattered, absolutely brokenhearted. So this character is continuing to move forward, even though it is like, in some ways you can see it as a backward regression, that she started as being single and happy about it to in a relationship and happy, and now she is single and very unhappy about it. This is though this is season 2, and they were the most popular show on the WB at the time, so they were definitely going to be renewed for season 3 so they could leave a cliffhanger. Rory is back together with Dean. She's been with him for a real long time now, but she also just kissed Jess on the face. Jess didn't ask for it. Rory is the one who initiated it, so we have left both of them with a big old question mark. But do you see how they are bridesmaids in a wedding? We are giving Suki, Lorelai's best friend, we are giving her the happy ever after. So season 2 feels like it has a nice final button on it. It feels very satisfying that we have seen Suki's love story play out in a meaningful way, and these two both have just blown up their entire lives. So they are the question mark, while Suki gets the nice resolution. And they do this through the course of the entire show. At the beginning of each season and at the end of each season, the characters are often in an opposite place, but they are pulling on different pieces of their characters. So sometimes they are pulling on their romantic storyline, sometimes they are pulling on the relationship between the two women together, sometimes they are pulling on their relationship with their grandmother, sometimes they are pulling on career strings. They pull on different pieces and different aspects of these characters, but they always give one big nice resolution while pulling on some other thread and unraveling something else somewhere else. This is different than what like long form sitcoms and especially soap operas used to do for a very long time, in which they would go through an entire season and then they would come back for the new one and basically reset and start over. And that is because we have changed the way that we consume stories and we've changed the way that we consume media. If a book series used to come out like one book every 3 years, and you weren't inclined to reread the book before book 2 came out, you could reset those characters and move forward. And this is where we would get some very, very long series indeed, in which the characters didn't grow and change as much over the course of the series because the author had the opportunity to sort of reset at the beginning of each book. We did the same thing in sitcoms and soap operas, where at the beginning of the new season, all of the learning and growth and fun that had happened kind of got reset. You see on, sitcoms from the 80s and the 70s, in which these characters are basically stock characters. They stay the same over the course of the entire show. There's not as much learning and growth. Media and stories have changed. We don't write things that way anymore. People are invested in character growth. People are invested in characters moving forward. Even a character like James Bond, which for decades was a static character that people wanted this character to come back and be the exact same every single time, he now is going through growth arcs in the newer movies. He is growing and changing, and his relationships to the people around him are changing. Comic book characters for a very long time were very static. You could pick up a copy of a comic book in any order and be able to follow the story, and that's not the case anymore. Comic books are very complex. Comic books have very deep and interesting character arcs for all of their characters, and that's been going on for quite a while. That's not new in the last 2 or 3 years. That's more like the last 30 years. This has been going on for a while. So you're going to pull at different strings of the characters' traits. You're going to make sure that there is at least some part of the story that has resolved in a satisfying way. And if you want examples for how to do this, go read more stories that are doing long form character storytelling and watch TV shows that have come out in the last 20 years to see how they are doing this. There are a lot of examples out there that you can mimic and understand how to pull on these different character threads.